everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland Retrospective here on the SPM Crew Podcasting Network. And this is my weekly show where my guests and I each pick a film related in some shape or form, and then hopefully by the end of this episode, you all have two films to go check out. And joining me for the last episode of the month, as always, it's Jeff. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on.
Of course, anytime.
Absolutely. And we have a couple of layers here. It's two Coens films, but they're also very music-y and also probably not music that tons of people listen to today. But I feel like folk's probably a little bit more popular than bluegrass. But we're going to be talking about Inside Llewyn Davis and Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Wow, that soundtrack was so insanely popular, but we'll talk about that. But let's get started with Inside Llewyn Davis from 2013, a week in the life of a young singer as he navigates the Greenwich Village folk scene of 1961. So, Jeff, what are your thoughts on this film that made people pay attention to folk music back then, you know, over a decade before A Complete Unknown?
Well, that's funny you brought up A Complete Unknown because the minute I watched A Complete Unknown, I was like, oh, this would be a really good double feature with Inside Llewyn Davis, as like
Yeah.
Inside Llewyn Davis being the first and then A Complete Unknown being almost exactly right after that in the timeline.
Mhm.
But as far as Inside Llewyn Davis is concerned, I absolutely adore this movie. I love the way it's color graded. I love the way it's shot. It just portrays New York in a very interesting in light. The music is just phenomenal. I wasn't a big like folk music fan
Mhm.
before this, but this movie just like they picked the right songs for someone to really get into the music. And I absolutely love it. I don't think there's a single performance in this movie that really is missed. Like
Mhm.
everybody is just firing on all cylinders. Even like the bit characters, like the
Yeah.
like his agent that he
Yeah.
goes to like a couple
And his
times in the
wife.
film. Like yeah, and the old woman, like they both just work off of each other really well. Yeah, they're like every character is just on fire in this. I love it.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on the visuals of the film real quick because this was very unique for the time because this is
Hmm.
Bruno Delbonnel who was the cinematographer and this was not a Deakins. And
Yeah.
Deakins hasn't worked with the Coens in a few films at this point, but this was one that had a very different kind of feel than a lot of
Yeah.
Coen brothers films because since Barton Fink in the early 90s, basically they made every film together. But this one has that very distinct look to it that does really feel like, hey, we're in this like vintage time. And I do
Hmm.
really appreciate that. And I think the music is really important, whether it's like fun, like the the Justin Timberlake Adam Driver.
Oh,
Um,
that's what I think that's one of my like probably my favorite scene of the movie is that scene where they're doing Please Mr. Kennedy.
Please, Mr. Kennedy. Uh-oh. Just like that whole entire
Yeah.
thing is so much fun because it has that spectrum of that. And
Hmm.
then I think my favorite scene in the film is where he plays for F. Murray Abraham. There's just so much emotion there. And it's so heartbreaking. Like the interaction that he has with F. Murray Abraham afterwards. He
Hmm.
just laid it all out there. And F. Murray Abraham pops up for one scene and just nails it. And it's so good that interaction. And it's such an important capturing of what the music industry like can be. It's like you can bare your whole entire soul, but if you don't hit the right itch, what they're looking for, and it just feels so devastating that scene for sure.
Oh yeah. I mean I relate to the Llewyn Davis character so much because he's at this point in his life where his art is not taking him anywhere, and then
Mhm.
and he feels that he needs to go and re-enlist back in. I think it was the Air Force or the Navy or something.
Mhm.
Um, because he comes to this like realization. He's like, I don't think I'm going to go anywhere. And I relate to that because I think every artist, I mean, I consider myself an artist. I've, every artist has been in that situation where we are dealt a bad hand, and we're just we feel like giving up. And this is how he feels. He's like, I give up. I can't do it. I can't make it as an artist anymore. So I'm just gonna have to go and re-enlist and give up my passion. And it's even that he can't even do,
Yeah,
so it's
that
one of
was
those
so
things that, like,
frustrating.
I relate to so much, because I've been there so many times in my artistic career.
Yeah, and this certainly is a film that, like you mentioned, and I appreciate how you connect with it on a personal level, but it's that kind of thing where it's like you have this dream and then life just keeps pulling you back down with the worst
Hmm.
gravity ever, just like slamming you down and being like, no,
Yeah.
this isn't going to work. And Oscar Isaac, I don't like, he is such an incredibly talented actor between this and a most violent year, or even just like his supporting role in, say, Dune, and
Hmm.
all of these different performances that he's been able to give. And people remember it was Poe from this new sequel Star Wars trilogy. Hopefully, people don't remember him as Apocalypse um, from the X-Men movies. But like, he just gives such a significant performance because uh, Llewyn is not an easily likable person
Yeah,
at
not
this
at
point
all.
in his life, like the snapshot that we get, he's just not a happy person and he's not easy to be around. And I think what's so compelling is that there's a specter of maybe what he was like
Hmm.
before this. And when you find out what happened to his like former partner, and just that adds so much weight to this. But there's so many moments where you're just like, oh my god, like the cringe of
Hmm.
discomfort with how he deals with human interaction, and like that dynamic between him and Gene Carey Mulligan's character. There's just so much baggage there, and you can feel it in just like their interactions. And I'm a humongous John Goodman fan, so I love seeing him pop up in Coen Brothers films like this. And like his character is so such an asshole. And
Hmm.
just like that whole entire just offshoot, this film really understands how to capture like this feeling of this great journey. But then in the end, it's a journey to nowhere. And the film so interestingly like begins and ends in the same place. And I think
Yeah.
that's all so significant and important thematically, because it just feels like this is the unfortunate place where Llewyn is in his life. And you just feel that in Oscar Isaac's performance. You feel that in the Coen brothers' writing. And just this is just drenched in a beautiful looking film with beautiful music that just
Hmm.
really captures an atmosphere for sure.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, like kind of what I said earlier, there's no part of this movie that is off for me. I Yeah, there's everything about this movie just speaks to me on such a deep level. Everything from the cinematography to the music,
Mm.
just it's astounding.
It just so perfectly captures this waywardness and also such a damn cute cat. Just
I
to
know
throw
the
that
cat.
on
I was
top
gonna
of it.
say I'm not much of a cat person, but I'm like, that cat was adorable.
That cat was also up to a lot of no good, which,
Hmm.
that's a cat for you. I have three. They're so damn cute and they could get away with it. But that's just like that little cherry on top of this film. It really feels like, and I don't know, I feel like this is kind of a really underappreciated film in the Coen brothers
Yeah.
filmography. Because like if you're a big Coen brothers fan, you obviously know this film and you probably love it. Because it is a great film. I kind of put this in the same boat as, like, this is a little bit different because A Serious Man got nominated for like Best Picture. So like that obviously did get more attention, but I feel like
Hmm.
both of those films feel like such personal experiences. obviously in a little in different ways, but they're films that like if you really love the Coens, those films really capture something special. Like in between like No Country for Old Men and
Hmm.
like True Grit and some like bigger films at this juncture in their career before, they just had some fun with like Hail Caesar and then was like and off doing their own thing now and maybe coming back together. I'll watch whatever either one of them does or what they do together. I am hooked.
I agree.
Hook, line, and sinker. But I guess, Jeff, do you have any other thoughts on Inside Llewyn Davis?
No, it's just a film that I agree with you. I think this film is super underrated and super underappreciated. It doesn't, anytime I ask somebody if they've seen it, they have no idea what it is. But granted, there a lot of people I talk to are not film people, so I have to be the person to be like, you got to go check this film out. If you like any kind of like folk music, or even I'll even go as far as to say country music, even though I don't like country music. I'm like, even if you like country music, you'll dig the music in this. It's great.
Jeff over here doing the Lord's work, spreading the good book of the Coens. And speaking of a man of constant sorrow like Llewyn Davis, we have Brother Where Art Thou, which this film is this has to be one of the best examples of how to creatively adapt a book, or in this case, an epic poem, because this is indeed an adaptation of Homer's Odyssey, which we're getting a real strict adaptation from Christopher Nolan, apparently. I
Yeah.
bet that
So
one doesn't have bluegrass.
I was gonna ask about that because I'm not familiar with. I didn't know that this was a like a based on the
Yeah.
Odyssey, and so I when I saw that come up on the credits, I was like, really? Like, is that what the Odyssey's about?
It's so interesting because from the very beginning, so before we jump into our thoughts on the film, just hitting on some of these points though, because like the quick synopsis is this is in the deep south during the 1930s. Three escaped convicts search for hidden treasure while a relentless lawman pursues them. So, first off, George Clooney's character is Ulysses Everett McGill,
Hmm.
aka Ulysses, for those that don't know, is the Roman version of Odysseus, aka the person who went on the Odyssey. Two, at the very beginning where they meet the blind black man on the cart, he's the Oracle of Delphi. And then you have John Goodman, who has an eye patch, is the Cyclops that, physically harms them. And I'm trying to think of other, like the three women singing to them are the sirens who bring them to their
Okay.
doom. So like there's a lot of, it's a mixture of that, and then you have that like blues lore with like
Yeah.
the hollow voiced man being, he's the devil, the crossroads kind of thing, who's coming after them. And it's a the basic framework of it is the Odyssey. And then, of course, you have all the hinges of what the actual story is for this particular one. But yeah, so this one is from 2000, and the soundtrack for this blew the hell up. This soundtrack sold so many like CDs and records and stuff
Hmm.
like that, and really brought bluegrass back to prominence, which was so weird in the year 2000. But yes, starring George Clooney, John Turturro, and Tim Blake Nelson as our trio. But Jeff, what are your general thoughts on "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou"?
So I watched it last week in prep for today, and it was my second time watching it. I think I had seen it a few years before that. I went an embarrassing amount of time not seeing it before that. But I like it. I mean, it's fun, it's silly, it's quirky. Clooney is really fun to watch in it. I think Tim
Mhm.
Blake Nelson is really fun to watch in
Yeah,
it. He's just playing like a dopey guy. Um, but just seeing Clooney's journey through this whole thing is really fun, and I get a kick. I get a kick every time he's on screen.
this so and I had a realization watching this. I'm like, my immediate reaction was, he's done his best work by far with Coen Brothers when he's having fun. But then I had to take a step back and really think about like, but he's great in Up in the Air. He's great in the Ocean's movies. He's great in
Yeah.
Michael Clayton. I'm like, okay, I just really enjoy him in the there's movies because he's just great a lot.
Yeah,
Or
I
like
mean,
The
like I
Descendants.
think I was gonna say I think he's good in Descendants. He's good in
Yep.
what's another one too? I can't really remember, but you said all the ones I was gonna say. But yeah, like I mean, he's just so good in everything that he does, and like there's very few movies that I see him and I'm like he's not on his stuff today.
My wife connects with Everett, the character, so much because my wife indeed has the gift of gab. And
Yeah.
Jess and I are huge Coen Brothers fans. That's one of the things that we have strongly in common with each other. And we
Hmm.
quote this movie an insane amount in our daily lives because just like from it's like when he's just like, I could get you some and be here in a couple of weeks. It's like, well, isn't this a geographical oddity? 2 weeks from everywhere. And just the dialogue in this movie is incredible. And just the it's like, hey, we're in a tight spot. Um,
Hmm.
and he kept doing that when they're in the barn, and he's like, I didn't get run over by no train, the paterfamilias. And just all of these, he's such a big character and he's such a grifter. And that's what makes him so entertaining, is because
Hmm.
like he is a snake charmer for sure, because like you just can't help but find Everett so charming, but he is indeed a greased up haired con man
Yeah.
for sure. And that's what works so well, especially the scene with him and Big Dan Teague, John Goodman as the Cyclops. He's like, "You sir, we have the gift of gab,"
Hmm.
and their whole entire dynamic. But no, Tim Blake Nelson is fantastic in this as Delmer. He's the heart of the movie because like he's like, you know what? I lied. I did stick up that Piggly Wiggly, but it's all washed away. And just like you feel for him, and like he legitimately is trying to be a better person along the way with this. And John Turturro is having a lot of fun as Pete. He just has some moments. This film's endlessly quotable. Honestly, one of my favorite characters in this whole thing, which this has this whole entire like political subplot of this election going on, and Charles Durning as Happy O'Daniel is so funny in this, and his interaction with his like brain trust of like
Hmm.
his campaign managers and his son, it's just absolutely hilarious. And between him and like Wayne Duvall's Homer Stokes, their whole back and forth and stuff like that, and you can tell the Coen brothers just love cinema so much because there's so many great homages to things like, case in point, The Wizard of Oz, when they're all like looking up over at the Ku Klux Klan thing, is the same exact shot of the Scarecrow, the Lion, and the Tin Man looking over at the witch's castle, and they're all doing the
Hmm.
oh wheel. And it's just like there's just so many fun little nods like that in this film. And like this is a film that shouldn't work. This is an Odyssey adaptation in the Prohibition South with bluegrass music from start to finish. And somehow this was some magical alchemy that the Coen brothers put together and made something so delightful. And like this got Golden Globes attention, and outside of the music, it didn't get much at the Oscars. But like honestly, I think this should have gotten a lot of attention at the Oscars because like this is just such a creative, interesting film.
Yeah, I agree that it's just so much fun. I love it a lot.
And one of the most interesting things about this film is what Roger Deakins did in post. Because if you see the actual footage of this, like it was rich, like
Hmm.
green and everything. And they're like, whoa, we need to make this look like the Depression. And they desaturated everything. And like, I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time they decolorized a whole entire film in post like that.
Oh yeah.
And they didn't give this man an Oscar. Roger Deakins didn't win an Oscar for 17 more years after this.
Hmm.
I'm a Deakins stan, and like for sure, I'm like, if he shoots a film, I'm like, I'm watching it. I'm excited for it. Even like I didn't love Empire of Light, but God, did that movie look gorgeous. Um,
Yeah, I
but
did not like that movie at all.
then there's a lot of choices for sure
Hmm.
in that film, but the best choice was getting Roger Deakins to shoot it. Um, but this is just from a visual standpoint, just Pete Cohen's and Deakins working together. George Clooney, and this is such an interesting time too, because like this was he was at really famous with ER, but then also coming off of Batman and Robin. So
Hmm.
like this is such an interesting film for him to jump right into. And what I appreciate about George Clooney, he's not afraid to be silly in things.
Yeah,
And he gets to do that in Coen Brothers movies because oh my god, him and Burn After Reading is hilarious. I don't
yeah.
think
Burn
I've
After
seen
Reading is so good.
I don't think I've ever seen a better paranoid face on an actor ever in a movie besides a who are you? Who do you work for? Um kind of thing. And just top to bottom, this has such a great cast. And like any Coen Brothers movie is gonna have great minor characters, even like Stephen Root, who's a consistent one
Hmm.
in Coen Brothers, like the blind guy who runs the place that he's like, you can record on a can. It's just from start to finish. It's like even just like the silliness, like Holly Hunter's so great, what she in like three
Hmm.
scenes in the whole entire movie. But it's just like he's bona fide. I'm like, I am bona fide. And even Ray McKinnon, who's so great as her, it's like, you can't talk to my fiance like that, and just how silly they looked with him throwing fisticuffs like this.
Yeah, they
And
look
like George
ridiculous.
and George Clooney looks like a complete and utter idiot. But with his stance when they're fighting like that. And honestly, one of my favorite like little lines is after it's like, well, Everett, were you just banned from that one Woolworth or all Woolworths? And just like such a random line, like so funny. And like I guess he's a marshal who's chasing after them is so
Hmm.
haunting. Like the man with the hollow voice and the reflective glasses, because he's definitely supposed to be like Boss Godfried from like Cool
Yeah.
Hand Luke for sure. Um, and just like the whole flood allegory and everything. And how great the script is with little details. There's a montage in this film that perfectly utilizes newspaper cover and like pages and stuff like that to like drop in little details. Like this is one of those films that the more and more you watch it, you just find so much more. And obviously, I've watched this a lot. Can't you tell, Jeff?
Yeah, I can tell.
But Jeff, do you have any other thoughts before I just keep talking for another hour about this movie? But we don't have to. So,
The only other small, it's not even important. It's just something that I thought was funny. Is the one of the guys who is one of Pappy's staff members, Brian Reddy. He's also the high talker in Seinfeld, and I thought that was really funny.
I don't think I've watched that episode in so long. I
Uh,
remember that. It's so funny. I just
because he looked like it, and I was like, oh, like I think that's the high talker, and I had to look it up on IMDb. I was like, oh yeah, it is.
just those scenes capture what's so wrong with our political system all in one. It's just like, hey, hey, Dad, hey, Pappy, you know, that Homer Stokes, he has that reform. How about we get some reforms? Like, you can't have reform if you're the incumbent. He's just like, that's his son. Just like, this is the kind of crap that runs our political parties and systems at this point. It's just like, this is too real. Too real sometimes.
Hmm.
And like the fact that they literally run Homer Stokes out on a rail is one of the most like crazy old school things you're gonna see in a movie.
Hmm.
Um, and then of course the music, and just even like Alison Krauss and all the who are singing some of these old traditional like bluegrass and folk songs and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
Man of Constant Sorrow, so good. That is definitely not George Clooney singing because apparently he was atrocious. So
Yeah,
they had to get somebody
I
else.
was gonna mention that too. That he was apparently he wanted to sing really bad, and they were like, we're gonna dub your voice. It's okay."
Yeah. And if they needed to, I trust their process. I think
Yep.
Tim Blake Nelson actually sang because when he sang, it really did sound like his voice. But I
Yeah.
can't confirm or deny because I didn't look that up. I didn't do my
I
research.
didn't know either. I only knew the George Clooney one just because I've heard it a million times.
Yeah, because also his singing voice doesn't sound anything like you would expect his singing voice to sound. But that's
Hmm.
okay. I think it just brings in all the charm. It's as fake as his beard when he pulls it down to the ground and everything. But Jeff, thank you so much for coming on and talking double dose of Coen Brothers musical films.
Sure, no problem.
And next month, Jeff's going to be back, and we are going to be doing a double dose of more music based films, High Fidelity and School of Rock. And this is actually a special little thing. So next week is going to be our 1 year anniversary, our 53rd episode of this show, which is wild. So, if you've been listening to this from the beginning, we appreciate it. And my wife and I will be on here to talk about Arsenic and Old Lace and His Girl Friday, some fast talking comedies from early cinema. But thank you all for listening. Make sure to like, comment, and share on this episode. What's your go-to Coen Brothers film? I know my wife and I for Valentine's Day just rewatched Intolerable Cruelty, and I will die on that hill that that movie is insanely hilarious and a really underappreciated Coen Brothers movie. Make sure to follow or subscribe wherever to listen to your podcast. We're ever expanding here at the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network. New shows, Tolkien, music, more movies, you have to have it. And if you ever want to join us, join the crew, start a show, or be a guest on any of the shows, please let us know. But also, if you like our logo, go check out High Flyer Creative. They do a lot of great work. And most importantly, thank you as always for tuning in and supporting the Wasteland Retrospective here on the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network.